Good morning. This is the Innovation Conversation. How you doing, Tom?
Good, Kevin. How are you?
You know, significantly better than I was this time last week.
Oh
Um,
man,
the only disappointing thing is I was supposed to be in Seattle right now, and we were going to do this live together, which we don't get a chance to do very often.
I know it would have been great to see you. I know we had grand plans too to get out to dinner
Yeah,
and all that, but I'll tell you the air quality here, especially coming off COVID, you don't want any part of it.
yeah. Well,
The smoke from the fires is pretty intense.
and trust me, at this point, just to be on the safe side, the last thing you want to do is be sitting next to me anyway. So, right? I'm testing
Not
negative
touching
now,
that.
but why take chances?
Right.
So the first thing I want to talk about this week is, or I want to talk around to a certain degree about the Kroger-Albertsons deal, because this strikes me as being really interesting. And in this case, it looks like there's going to be at least 14, 15 months before they're able to complete the deal. They got to go through regulatory stuff. God knows what they're going to have to divest. But I want to talk about it from the perspective of innovating. So both companies clearly, they have an innovation budget. They probably don't call it that, but they have innovation budgets. They have plans. They think of things they want to do, as would hopefully any company that's involved in a merger or an acquisition.
Right.
So how do you, what are there ground rules for how you innovate in a time like that where you can't go into stasis because everybody else will innovate past you? And yet you probably have to be a little careful not to go in such opposite directions that their approaches to innovation are harder to merge at the end.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good and important question. To just think about like when these, and again, not this specific transaction, but when transactions like this, are proposed, a lot of pre-work goes into the alignment around, how the companies are going to be philosophically aligned.
Right.
Probably even some early conversations about like who's going to be in which role, particularly the senior teams. Some overall thoughts of how are we going to, merge our entities to gain operating efficiencies, all the things you're trying to get out of this. That takes a lot of mind share, kind of pre-announcement, and a lot of actions and effort post-announcement. And so, on a few levels, right, that takes up a lot of capacity of people, of their time and of their energy. Frankly, it also, a lot of folks are kind of freaked out when these things happen, right? Like, how is my role going to be affected? There's a real burden, a management burden on helping folks through that so that they stay, engaged in their roles and they stay empowered to do the things that they do well. So kind of with all that, there's probably 10 other points we could say toward, kind of the approach to that. But when it comes to innovation, it's a tough one because you definitely, in such a competitive market that we're in too, right? You have to keep innovating. Like neither company in a combination such as this, can really afford to wait, right? Okay, maybe one company is innovating in certain areas that the other company isn't, and vice versa. And it's great to bring those innovations together, but when you're going to be impacting, when you can have a certain portion of your customer base or whatever that falls behind, receiving the benefit of that innovation, those third party threats, can make nice share gains and make nice progress against you. So it is really important. I think you probably need to sharpen your focus on which are the very most important innovations that we each have in our plans, and how are we going to continue those innovations, and then what's our thought on kind of cross adopting those innovations. I don't think your innovation list can be quite as long, right? So if you have a dozen things you're working on in innovation, you might have to cut it. Each company might have to cut it down to 8 or 9. It's not like you're completely cutting it, but I think you have to absolutely just have to keep the focus on innovation. Recognizing that some of your management capacity is going to have to go toward focusing on the combination, but there's no time to wait. Or if you do wait, you're probably putting yourself at risk.
Forgive me for this may sound like a stupid question. I don't know the answer to it. To what extent are companies in any situation, we're not talking about Kroger-Albertsons here, but to what extent are companies able to talk to each other during the process? Right? Because that's right. Isn't that the very essence of antitrust issues? So are companies able to, if you're involved in a merger and acquisition with another company, whether they're the same size,
Right.
smaller, little bigger, whatever, are you able to, how much checking in do you do with the other side to make sure you're on parallel tracks as opposed to divergent tracks?
I think, there's rules around that. You have to do plenty of collaboration, right? While you're exploring each other, you have very strict non-disclosures in place across the companies. You have very strict, breakup rules between the companies. Those breakup rules have to do with information, money, all kinds of things. So I think there's a lot of guidance and framework around that. I kind of lost my thought there.
No, in terms of how much you're able to talk to each other.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. So I was gonna say, as long as I was going there next. Thank you. Senior moment. Senior moment.
I'm now calling those moments COVID.
No, I'm good. No, I think as long as you're not engaging in, anti-competitive activities together, right? Bringing your entities together, to gain efficiencies, right? Bringing your entities together for the good of your shareholders and ultimately for the benefit of customers. If your actions all support that, I think you're fine. If while you're engaged in these merger talks, you start price fixing and doing other things you're not supposed to do from an antitrust and anti-competitive standpoint, that would get you in trouble, right? So I think, steer clear of that, stay within the bounds, and I think you're probably fine.
It also seems to me that this creates an opportunity also at the same time for the competition, right? Because if you're competing with entities that are about to merge or acquire one another, because they do have to sort of check with each other on certain things.
Right.
If this is a good time, it seems to me, if you're at the competition, to kind of put the pedal down and say, okay, this is we need to be more innovative. We need to invest more money in unusual things that are going to help us serve our customers better. And because we're not going to have those, they have distractions, right? If nothing else, they're meeting with the FTC every other week.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think it's a great time to be a better you, as a retailer, right? Like focus on the things that are differentiating, for you. Focus harder on the customer, delivering them things that you can uniquely deliver to them. Focus on innovations that you already see as important to them. I don't think it necessarily has to change your innovation plan. Like if you're customer centric, you've already got a kind of a path on where you're going to please those customers, and ultimately doing that better helps you grow. But there is an opportunity perhaps, while companies are focused on the back end things that they need to do, it may be slowing down on innovation. There may be an opportunity for you to get some of your key innovations out in front of the customers, kind of faster than your competition does.
But to that point, I would wager that there are a lot of companies out there that are not as customer centric as they should be. A lot of companies out there that are not as customer centric as I'd like to think they are.
Right.
So this would be a good moment. Again, if we're going to look at the specific merger, to say, okay, these guys are doing this, but there are going to be a certain amount of distractions. But at the end of the day, they're going to be a bigger, better resourced competitor to us. So now is the moment for us to redouble our efforts, to focus on getting closer to the customer, knowing more about the customer, being more responsive to the customer, and getting ahead of even what the customer wants. So when the customer gets to us, they go, wow, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I think so, because there's just certain, you're already behind. If you're a small, there are some larger players competing with, in the case of this merger, or any two large companies that come together in a market. It does give the smaller competition the opportunity to really highlight what makes them unique in their service of that customer, and to, really engage with the customer around that. So the customer doesn't even think about, working with the bigger player.
Yeah. It's a chance. To go back to that, it's a great phrase. It's a great time to be a better you. And that's something they've got to focus on now, right?
Yeah, and they should have already been focused on it, right? Like this shouldn't. If this is scaring, again, this merger, any merger, is all of a sudden scaring a competitor to be better, they were already in deep trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Okay. Second topic, number 2. Amazon's second Prime Day. the general reviews seem to be, and Amazon doesn't release the numbers, but
Right.
the general consensus seems to be that it didn't knock anybody's socks off. Yeah, they moved a lot of items, but it didn't have the kind of earth-shaking impact that a lot of the early Prime days did. And I think I wrote this on Morning Newsbeat, as a customer, I have to say it was, now granted, I had COVID during it, so I was not spending a lot of time on my laptop, but it wasn't like I was getting a lot of emails from Amazon. And I've been doing business on Amazon since 96, 97.
Right.
I didn't feel marketed to in any way, shape, or form. So my question is it time, in a broad sort of sense, is it time to retire Prime Day? Has it become sort of a Me Too event that is not having the kind of impact, and it's time for Amazon to say, okay, let's do something else? Because everybody else is doing Prime Day events too. They're calling it something else. They're all doing it. What do you think?
I mean, that's a really good question. I think, and I'm not sure what the motivation was, behind the second Prime Day. You didn't really see a lot of positioning of it, right? It was just like, hey, we got another day with these great deals, get out ahead of the holidays, right?
Right.
Okay, that's kind of interesting. I mean, to me, if you really wanted to appeal to your customers, talk about how we know how tough it is today, right? Prices are getting higher, money's tight. We want to offer you this set of amazing deals.
Right.
Right. And you can go across categories with these amazing deals, but here's an opportunity for us to help you.
Right.
To me, that's better than the kind of the standard, here's a bunch of stuff that we've knocked some, cost, some price off. And frankly, the discounts aren't even really that crazy deep like they've historically been on Prime Day. I mean, it used to be, Prime Day came, first of all, you were watching for the deals. They were pre-announcing some of them.
Right.
They touted limited quantities of certain deals, and they were deep and they were compelling. And you had to go get them. And there was some like excitement.
And there was like limited assortment, right?
Exactly. Yeah, limited assortment and limited quantities.
Right.
Right, of items. So I was like, I gotta go get that.
Yeah.
So it had this scarcity and this energy. I didn't feel the energy with the second one, this year either. But again, I don't know really what the intention was for it. I think once you do more
I think the intention was to drive some volume to the fourth quarter. I mean,
it probably is what, and I'm sure it worked to some degree. It'll be a little while till we see that. It'll be, 3.5 months from now. I don't, I think once you do something more than once in a year, it's just not going to be as special.
Yeah.
Or the nature of what it is changes, right? And I think Prime needs to be one. I think it needs to be once, and I think it needs to be special. And I think if you're able to keep it special, there's no reason to get rid of it.
Yeah.
But it has to be special, and I don't think it has been of late.
And I just, it's funny. The phrase I just used as I said it, I wonder if it also points out a flaw, which is, I said, well, it seemed that the reason they wanted to do a second Prime Day was to drive volume to the fourth quarter. That is about Amazon's priorities. It's not about the customer's priorities.
Exactly.
If I'm reading the room right.
Yeah.
And the one thing Amazon's always been, resolute about is saying, hey, we're gonna start with the customer. And this didn't feel like it started with the customer. And even if it did, they didn't position it that way, to go back to your earlier point.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Again, who knows how they're thinking about it internally, but from the outside, I think that's a fair take.
Okay. Third, final point. And this goes back, I think that we've signed off the last 2 or 3 innovation conversations by saying, let's go Mets. Didn't work out quite the way we hoped. But it seems to me there's also a really good, there's a business metaphor in there, in that sense that, the Mets, the Braves, the Cardinals, the Dodgers, all are out. And they had some of the best records. I mean, the Mets and the Cardinals tied for the lead, the NL East. Cardinals won their division. Dodgers won their division, by a massive number of things. And we know that as we record this, we should say it's Tuesday. The Yankees are going to play the Guardians in a few hours. So one of the two is out, and they both won their division. So one of them is.
If the Yankees go out, they were right there, top 3 or 4 win totals in baseball.
And so the question is, is that a good metaphor for business? Because, yeah, they had great records, but records are by their very nature what happened in the past. And how important it is you got to continue to get hits. You got to continue to pitch well. You got to continue to make the plays, which is innovation in its own way, right?
Yeah.
And not to say how great is it we won the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have a good reputation, right? And reputation. I think you've quoted Norman Mayne, who said, reputation is about what you did yesterday.
Right.
And that's true. And that is, you'd rather have a good reputation than not, but you can't strictly rely on that reputation. And clearly, in a sport where you're measured each day, you start 0-0. Right. And you're measured on your performance of that day. And these teams all went home because their performance on those days wasn't what it needed to be to win. And yeah, I mean, I think in retail, in brand and business, I mean, you've got to be good today. And you may not, it's not like a retailer is going to lose and be eliminated because of a bad day or a bad week. But if you have a good past and you're not executing to that level, you're not performing to that level, you're not the solution to your customers, the best solutions to your customers, you're going to lose traction and you're not going to win. And so I think that is, I mean, these teams, they didn't get it done. As the leaders, they didn't get it done when they needed to. And as the underdogs, they all found a way to shine, right? They all found a way to rally, to overcome the reputation, to play in the moment, and to deliver.
Yeah, I mean, it seems in both a cautionary note to you, to whoever the people are or the companies that are number one in their markets, but it is a wonderfully kind of aspirational note that if you're number two or number three in your market, that you can innovate faster, you can perform at a higher level, and actually lap the I'm mixing all my sports metaphors.
Yeah, totally.
But that's an important thing to do. So I think it's a really good. Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, as a Mets fan, I hate the Phillies, and I like the Dodgers more than the Padres. But the Phillies and the Dodgers ought to be really, I mean, they're like poster boys or poster children for the idea that it doesn't matter how big you are or how successful you are, you're always at risk of giving up your advantages.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's all about your performance today.
Yeah. That said, I'm still disappointed by the Mets.
I know. I know. Well,
as in baseball, it's good to have resources, and we do have an owner who has some resources.
We do have an owner with resources, and we have the Jets.
Yes. Go figure. And when was the last year we said that?
Yeah, it's not. It's been a bit. Who knows? Well, they have 4 wins now. They could finish the season with 4 wins.
Yeah, they could. Let's hope not. Yeah. Anyway, as always, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I'm not in Seattle, but maybe next time.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do it again soon, Kevin. But as always, great to see you, and look forward to doing this again in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.